Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Chit-Chat podcast. And for today's episode, we have Sarath Kumar from Alpha with us. Sarah, welcome to our podcast. And thank you so much for accepting the invitation.
Of course, it's a pleasure to be here in this beautiful place.
Yeah.
Meeting you for the first time.
Yeah,
really
meeting you.
glad. Really
Yes,
excited.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. I mean, the fun story about how I got to know Sarath is actually just through WhatsApp. I have never met him in person. And we were supposed to meet, but fate decided we will not meet.
Yeah.
Until today.
Yep. Yeah, it's I mean, I think meeting you on WhatsApp, I had a different perception lah. I thought you were a far more serious person. And then meeting you in person like kind of helped to break the wall.
I think WhatsApp you never can judge a person through WhatsApp.
I know.
Just because I don't use emojis, you know.
Yeah, when I was late and then you're like, all right. I'm like, is he mad?
No. Today you are here and we want to talk about Alpha because you work in Alpha. And I think, but just not just about Alpha, but let's also just have conversation about the state of evangelism in Malaysia, Malaysian churches, and how Alpha is helping the church in that. Now, just share briefly how did you end up working in Alpha?
Sure. Briefly,
okay. Don't have to be brief. It's okay.
Okay, let me ask ChatGPT to make it big. Okay, so the story goes back to I think when I was a teenager. That time I was a non-Christian. I remember having a lot of questions regarding faith and religions. And I was like, hey, how to get this all clarified? That time, Google boleh lah, it was good, but you want to know how faith impacts people's real lives. I really wanted to know from real people and not a website or something. Then I kind of got sick of searching and looking for spaces to talk and be heard. Then I was like, okay lah, naman lah. So I just chill lah, just do my life and later in life, like when I was in uni.
Okay.
This time I was already a Christian, so there was a lot of stuff happened between when I was a teenager. I was not a Christian back in uni when I was a Christian. A lot of things happened, but to answer your question, when I was in uni, this guy from Alpha, his name is Aaron. He's now looking after. He's doing a church plant in Kuching.
I see.
So he was the youth staff at the time.
Okay.
So he reached out to us and introduced Alpha to us in the CF. So I'm from Utah, and I was part of the CF. So he said, hey, why not you try Alpha in your CF? And that's the first time I'm like coming across Alpha as a tool. And I realized that, wow, it actually provides a space for people to explore and ask questions in a very safe environment without being judged or without being frowned at. I'm like, wow, this is fantastic. So I'm like, okay, we all decided to run it, and we ran it in our CF. And I really saw the potential of what it could do in our context. And later the invitation came from Alpha to join them as a volunteer to train up the different universities. So I joined them as a volunteer, and that's how I ended up being a staff, because I think I received a call from God, like he kind of put a burden of evangelism in my heart. And just about that time I graduated, and Alpha came to me, with this invitation to join the team. It's like, wow, all worked out well. So why not?
Yeah. What's your role in Alpha?
So I serve coffee to. I'm kidding.
Wow.
My role is
serve coffee to Paul.
Okay, delete that. I'm kidding. I don't know, Paul is a coffee person. Yeah, okay, never mind. So what I do is, at the moment, I look after the entire youth team. So our youth team is made up of 3 of us. And then there are volunteers. We call them coaches.
All right.
So that's 3 staffs, including myself. We look after a different language. And, we look after the different language youth groups, CF campuses all over Malaysia. it's Abraham and Elaine. We are part of the team, and then in the team we also have the coaches who actually work very hard. They are not paid. They are volunteers from
Okay.
different states,
Yeah.
different context, different language background,
Okay.
helping us to train the churches in their own cities and locality where they come from. Yeah.
I see. Wow, that's a very broad job scope, huh?
Oh yes, yes, very broad.
Wow, that's very interesting. Now we talk about Alpha. My first understanding of Alpha is when I was a kid, and then I'm not sure if you've seen this booklet.
Is
the
it with the one
question mark.
man carrying the question mark?
Yes, that's
Sorry.
right. that was my first introduction to Alpha, and I remember because my dad's a pastor, and he would run that version of Alpha.
Correct.
Small group setting. He would sit down with a guitar.
Yep.
Very old school.
Yep.
And that's my understanding of Alpha. Then after that, I got lost a little bit halfway in life.
You went to explore everything.
Yeah, I went and explored everything outside of the Christian faith, And then when I came back, especially when I joined church ministry, then so that was quite a long time. And then when I joined church ministry, then we were introduced to Alpha, and I was like, okay, we need to. And my first impression of Alpha was still the booklet.
The booklet, yeah.
You see, I didn't update my information. Then someone showed me, no, Alpha is this, and it's on YouTube, and they showed me the video, and I was like, wow, this is so cool.
Yep.
It's like I've never seen an organization package the gospel in such an attractive way.
Oh, thanks.
So professional, so well done.
Thank you.
Yeah. But for a lot of our audience listening here, I think they're not really sure what Alpha is. Maybe if you were to do a business pitch on what Alpha is,
Oh, wow.
how would you pitch Alpha?
Okay, I'm seeing a lot of TikTok on what to do when you in an interview and all of that. I'm telling you, I'm going to be very bad at it. But let me.
You should have consulted ChatGPT.
Yep.
You can. The Wi-Fi is here quite fast.
Is it? Okay. Okay. So if I was to explain what Alpha is like or what is it about, I would have to choose a perspective, right? So how does a church view it, and how is it for those who like the guest?
Yep.
So I would choose the perspective of a guest.
Yep.
So what Alpha is that it's a space. Just to give an illustration, when S23 series came out, I was so excited. So I used to be a Samsung fanboy.
Okay.
And then when they started only releasing Exynos chips to Malaysia, I dumped Samsung for good. And now when I see S23 series coming out, I was like so excited because they have the latest Snapdragon chip.
Okay.
They have everything that I ever wanted in a Samsung phone. And then I saw all the
Not
reviews.
sponsored by Samsung, by the way.
Not sponsored by Samsung, but I personally think it's better than iPhone. And I'm kidding. I seriously think it's better than iPhone.
Yeah.
But anyhow,
Okay.
so I saw all the reviews. They were amazing. Like even those who had been very critical about S22 Ultra and also iPhone, they were like, "Whoa, it's so good" and stuff like that. I'm like, is it really that good? I mean, I know Samsung had really failed us, the users, at one point when the screen was having issues and stuff. I'm like, is it for real? So I was like, went to 3 different Samsung experience store.
Okay.
They call them the Samsung Experience Store.
Yeah. Is it the ones where they have big screens and they just promote
Yes.
their phones? Like,
Yes, they put everything there and make sure you buy it. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
So I went with my
Looks
wife.
like an Apple store, by the way.
Okay. I have a lot to talk about Apple Store, like how they put the MacBook, the angle, like the moment you touch it, you feel like you're gonna buy it. But yeah, the whole idea is about that. Like when I went to the Samsung store, what I wanted to do is I want to check it out for myself if it's really that good, right? But when you walk into the experience store, you see the staff. You just want to touch the phone, but they come and stand there. Say, tak apa, nak tengok saja. No, tak apa, saya tunggu sini. And then you touch and feel and you try out the features. It's like, wow, okay, not bad. Then you talk to the staff. When is it? What are the pre-order stuff? What's the payment framework like? So walking into a Samsung experience store, gives you everything you would need knowledge and experience-wise before you decide whether you want to own it or not. Alpha is that. So Alpha is a space where if you have been having a lot of questions about faith, God, Christianity, religion, and how it interacts with people's life, and you just want to ask your questions. You think it's dumb questions, but you want to ask it without being judged. You can walk up to an Alpha. It's a space where you would see not staffs, but real people, struggling with real things, but still loving Jesus, being there. There'll be great food for you to eat, and then there'll be a video that expounds on the different topics to give you the understanding of what the Christian belief is about. And then you will have a group discussion where you can just ask any questions. And one of the good parts in Alpha is that no question is a stupid question. You can ask any question, and you can, in many Alphas, what happens is, even if they don't become a Christian, they continue journeying with the people because the friendship formed in Alpha become very authentic. So in a nutshell, it's a space where you come and experience and gain some knowledge about what the Christian faith is, how the Christian community revolves around the faith. And then by the end of Alpha, you should have enough knowledge and experience to decide whether you want to be part of the community or not. We call it process evangelism.
So it's like a process of 10 weeks. And then at the end of it, I think there is also a part where, you make that decision.
Correct.
Right? I think that's most important.
Yes.
We don't just give people knowledge, but we also invite them for the decision.
There are multiple avenues that's intentionally created. If one decides to make the commitment now, there's plenty of spaces within an Alpha. But also people where, for many of them, Alpha is the beginning of their faith. So this girl whom was part of our Alpha, she came from a different faith, and she didn't become a Christian in our Alpha. And many years later, I found out Alpha was the beginning of her discovery journey. And Alpha, gave her a lot of stuff to think about, and she had more questions to ask. And then she walked up to a church, and then she started asking questions. And then later she became a Christian. She was part of a team, and she got baptized early this year.
Oh wow!
And hence why the name Alpha. It's the start of a journey.
Exactly.
Of discovering faith in Jesus.
It's not like the end. Once Alpha ends, but it's an introduction which you can continue on, and that's what I like about Alpha. I love the fact that Alpha, when we did the training with our team, I love the fact that Alpha emphasized on the food. And I think this is so accurate, and it's so needed, especially in our Malaysian context, right? You serve good food, naturally people open up. And they're like, I'm coming back.
All food is good food in Malaysia.
I'm coming back, because the food is good at least.
Yes.
But I think the food aspect is something that, a lot of times we think of it as just, like you talk about in the concept of a main course. It's like the side dish. Okay, the food is just, we need to do it because, Alpha says you need food. But I like how Alpha, I don't know, that's how I look at it. Alpha emphasizes on the food. Like how you need to put effort into the food, because that's where all the conversations happen. But one thing I find that is a challenge is we talk about questions.
Correct.
I'm not sure, do people, especially in the Malaysian church context, do they feed this back to you where they say, oh, we are Asians, we don't ask questions. You can tell us no question is a dumb question, but at the end of the day, we still dare not ask a question. Do you get that a lot? We do get feedback on people not opening up, rather. They're like, oh, they were very quiet. They were not opening up. But I think everybody has questions. Exactly.
But it's just a matter of opening up. I've hardly seen anyone without a question. I would assume the person has no question, but they just don't have the courage or the space to ask it. Right? I think many churches who then come and say that the people don't open up, we encourage them and give them some tips. For example, trust factor is very important. Right? The trust factor is not built in an instance. It's built over time. So sometimes it requires patience. So we have extroverts and introverts, ambiverts as well. So we encourage them to, ask them to express themselves in the way they feel comfortable. I know in this school where the students were just quiet and they wouldn't speak for the first
Okay.
session at all.
Okay.
And then the teacher's like, how? And I was like, then she didn't ask me for tips. And then she rather told me what she did. She said she opened up a space where they could type in what they thought anonymously
All right.
into this website, and then she read it out and say, wow, that's a good thought. And then she would ask them to write it on a paper, put it in a jar, and then she'll pick it up and read it without even asking them to mention names.
Yeah.
I think it requires creativity to get them to speak, but I think everybody has questions. It's just that whether they have that space to ask the questions or the courage to ask the questions.
True. We run Alpha in our church for, I think, a few years already. We started since 2016, if I'm not wrong. Because we find that it's a good tool to bring non-Christians into church, right? Apart from the usual Christmas Day or Easter Sunday, right? This is one way you get them into church for at least a good 10 weeks.
Yep.
And then you get to go away with them for a retreat. We started off with that. We did big scale, but we also, I think, I faced that problem of people not asking questions. They have questions, but they are really afraid to ask.
Yeah.
This year we ran Alpha also. We changed certain things.
Okay.
Now don't scold me, all right?
No.
Because we didn't really follow the Alpha format.
Okay.
But basically, I told my team, like, all right, I'm gonna try something out. The non-believer come, you drop them off. It's like dropping off kids at a daycare, and I take care of them.
Okay.
It's one against a group of them, and I realized doing that, and they realized they are the majority.
Oh yeah.
And they came with their questions every week.
Wow. Wow. How did you handle it, man? Wow.
They came with that. I think being a pastor sort of helps, and they really came with, they really like unloaded all their questions. Like, you say Jesus is real and things like that. And they were really so bold with the question. But I was like, this is what I want.
Yeah.
Inwardly, I was like shivering.
Of course.
Some of their questions were really so tough. But then, I was thinking, on the other hand, hey, this is great, man.
Wow.
I
It's a great point. Actually, you have brought a great point that the trust factor is also, it gets built when they realize that they have voices that would affirm them.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So when there's a majority Christian group and there's just one non-Christian there, I don't think the person is ever going to come again or ever going to speak up. So we try to say minimize the Christians in the group and make them the majority so that they feel affirmed to ask questions.
And they agree with one another. They feed off each other's energy.
Good question. Ask more. Ask more. Make him cry.
Exactly. That's what they did. And I felt like we had so meaningful conversation. So I scheduled each Alpha session to be like no more than 1 hour. But it ran on for like 2 hours.
Wow.
The video would end, and then the question and answer would start.
Wow.
And every Alpha video triggers so much questions because it's like that. It's meant to trigger you to ask questions, and they really came prepared. It's like they did their homework. They even did their homework. Yeah. I would send them the handouts and like, wow.
Yeah. But I think it's also you, Pastor. I want to affirm you as well. I think just having a little chat with you, I see your posture is very perfect in a sense where it's...
Oh, no.
You are not perfect. Of course, none of us are. But what I feel is that I feel happy that someone like you is in this space. Right? Because you give them the assurance that this is safe. It's fine for you to ask any question.
Yeah, true.
I think the person who is there is also equally important. And thank you for talking about Alpha, but I would give it back to you saying that you used it well.
Thank you.
You had a good posture. You were kind to them.
Yeah.
And you saw what it did.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Alpha approved. Thank you. Now we talk about the context in which we run Alpha. It's not just in the church, I would assume. Where else do you, push for Alpha to be held and conducted?
Yeah. So Alpha happens for the youth. The youth groups in churches are one of the bigger groups who run it. School CFs, they really champion Alpha. It's really a happening thing. And then college campuses, campus CFs.
Okay.
And then other than that, there are also people who gather at cafes to run it. People who gather at futsal court. Like after a game, they would consider running it. Put in your mobile phones, or even gather at like home cell groups.
Oh wow.
Doing it in the cell groups.
Okay.
We even have this amazing story where two interesting stories during COVID was that this grandmother who ran Alpha for her granddaughter in Australia, waking up at a particular time to make sure they can run it just one-to-one.
Oh wow.
Online.
Okay.
And by the end of Alpha, the granddaughter wanted to be part of a church community, and we kind of referred her to a church community there.
Wow.
And another housewife, after her husband goes to work, and she's like, what to do at home? So boring. All the drama CDs, all very boring. I was like, okay, why don't I cook lunch and get some of the housewives? She saw some of the housewives in the same apartment as well. Why not gather them and have a chat? So she gathered a couple of them, cooked good food, played the series, ate together, and it worked there as well.
Yep.
Yeah, so it runs across many different
different
contexts.
platforms
Yeah,
and different
platforms.
contexts. Like,
yeah.
it's interesting now that you mention Alpha can even be done like one-on-one in the personal family context.
Yes.
Like, I never thought of that. That's something we can explore further in our own church setting.
Sure.
But I also want to talk about how COVID-19 probably, I think it was a challenge partly, but it was also a blessing, if we were to put it, blessing in disguise. Because just to just to share a story, my wife's church, previously she was in a different church, and then she moved to my church just recently. But back then she ran Alpha during the pandemic. And when you run Alpha before pandemic, I think you would have this experience as well. People will show up 1 week, 2 weeks, the third week they will say, "Oh, we cannot come."
Yeah.
Or
Typical
the fourth
problem.
week they will everyone is late. Even the volunteers are late.
Yeah.
Yeah, food arrives late, everything. And then, the numbers start great and then it sort of fluctuates until the end. And then, we are like barely making it through.
Yeah.
But during the pandemic, I was very surprised because every time she did this Alpha every week, I would, just watch behind the back. And because it was on Zoom, and everyone was so free. That was like the first MCO.
Lockdown.
Yeah.
Where you think COVID is coming through the air.
Exactly. Yeah, and then like every week it was full attendance.
Oh.
Like never once the attendance dropped.
Wow.
If they could make it, they would be there.
Wow.
And the interactions, because I think people were just so free. They were looking for activities and events, and everything was on Zoom, and so that was sort of like a blessing in disguise, right?
Yeah.
But were there also challenges for the Alpha team during that period of time?
The blessings outweigh the challenges, but the challenges were serious enough. I'll start with the blessings where it has really opened up a new arena altogether. Alpha was never online. We never believed in going online because we believed in physical connection, physical interaction. It's very important in Alpha's theology. And we never saw, we didn't want to have that option of going online. That's how even Nicky Gumbel would say that we never thought online would work, And then when COVID came, we saw what God was able to do, when you run an Alpha, maybe people in your locality would turn up. We could see an Alpha reaching far beyond the state, even the country sometimes. Friends who would naturally can't connect with their friends who are working overseas. They could now connect with them and run Alpha together.
Yeah.
My sister was running Alpha online with this group of youths from Taiping. Every week she would, get onto a call with them in Taiping.
Yeah.
And this would not have been possible. That would have been, when you talk about takeoff, to run an Alpha, Alpha Online has just made the takeoff much simpler.
Yeah.
You just have this, you can take off already, which is a blessing.
Yeah.
the challenges is similar to what a church would say. We still strongly believe in physical connection. It's irreplaceable.
Yeah.
But in a given situation, online is a great option. But the physical interaction and connection is irreplaceable. So when post pandemic, it was a struggle for even the churches to gather back the people.
Yeah.
And that also posed a challenge for Alpha as well.
I see.
But I saw churches who used that as a strength. They use Alpha as a tool to gather back the people to physical spaces because they could add value to them.
Yeah.
So value brought them back.
Yeah.
And they used Alpha to generate that value. You know, there's food, there's going to be, you can catch up with people.
True.
You know, we sanitize the place already. You'll be sitting 3 meters apart. You know, just come and try
Food
it
are
out.
pre-packed.
Food all prepared, right? You won't get COVID, right? You just still come.
We serve in surgical gloves.
Yeah. Or even in the Angkasawan suit, you know. Yeah, they did it. Like, it's all the churches. It's the churches who make Alpha even more powerful tool.
Yeah.
Or the communities that run it. In itself, Alpha tool there's nothing to talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a hammer.
Yeah.
You can't talk much about hammer. You only can talk about a hammer as much as someone uses it.
Yeah.
Oh, this is so good. How would you know if someone used it?
Start
This is
using it.
very sturdy, you know. It lasts you for 30 years.
Yep,
How would you know
yep.
if someone uses it right? Yeah.
Well, it's a really good tool for evangelism. But can we also use Alpha for Christians? Let's say I'm I have a youth group and maybe just to strengthen their faith as a means of refreshing their foundations. Can we use that as well?
Why not?
Why not?
I understand also because I come from a non-Christian background, right? I am naturally very passionate about the evangelism, where you reach out to the unchurched, people who are not Christians.
Yeah.
And then a youth pastor, I was like, oh, you must make sure there's non-Christians in your Alpha. You know, I was very passionate about that. I still am. I still think that's a very important part.
Yep.
But what I did not see, it never occurred to me that this current generation, they could be born in a Christian family, they could have been going to church, but God may not be their main thing ever. You know, they may not know about God or scriptures or faith or anything. You know, they're just as good as those who are outside the church because they don't have a personal connection.
Yeah.
But they're part of the community.
Yeah.
And it works. It works for them because I believe if we already have a relationship capital with these people, right? If when Alpha is run for them, it's easy to get their buy-in. So I believe when they come, they feel safe. They feel their questions are answered, that this is a great culture. They won't hesitate to invite their friends to come and join the next Alpha.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's important to reach out, but at the same time, it's important to focus and make sure we strengthen the insight as well.
True,
Yeah.
true. Because you also talk about like post-pandemic, you have a lot of Christians who are,
Correct.
kind of shaking in their faith, and some maybe they accepted Christ in 2019, early 2020, and then you're shut off or isolated from the church.
Yeah.
And I think this could be a very good reintroduction to the faith,
Yes.
and this is what
Definitely.
church is all about, fellowship. We talk about Alpha as a ministry, as an organization that doesn't just give you just these videos and say that's it, right?
Yeah.
There are also other initiatives by Alpha, and that's how we actually got in touch with each other.
Yeah.
Like, what other things Alpha does in Malaysia to help the Malaysian church with either evangelization or discipleship? What are some of the tools that Alpha gives to Malaysia?
Sure. So, I mean, with the growing and changing generations, it's important for us to always come back to drawing board. to understand the generations. If not, we will be still speaking the same thing, same way, but we will not be appealing to the generations.
Yep.
So it's important for any organization to understand the generations change across a particular time, and come back to think how we can bring in noticeable, meaningful changes. So for Alpha, for the past 4 years, I would say, 3 to 4 years, we have started on a journey of doing surveys, of understanding the different generations. We had a journey with Barna and World Vision on studying the millennials, on how they
Okay.
interact with church, society, and you know, topics like those, faith and stuff. But what I am particularly excited about this year is that we are in the space of partnerships with World Vision Malaysia and Barna to produce. So the global report is out,
Okay.
but what we are waiting for is the Malaysian report. So we did a survey on close to, I think, 26,000 teens all over the globe,
Yep.
answering a questionnaire that captures their perspective on social justice, church, teens, Bible, and those kind of topics. And all their responses now have been analyzed, and the report is out for the global one. And what we are going to get in a few months' time is the Malaysian version. So 1,000 Malaysian teens have responded to the questionnaire. What this report will contain is information and analysis about how the Gen Zs think and interact with the different elements in the church and outside the church.
Wow.
We believe that would not just, so Alpha doesn't run Alpha, and
Yeah.
World Vision, as far as I know, we work through mediums,
Yeah.
we work through the churches, and we feel that this will enrich the youth ministries in Malaysia, and if youth ministries thrive, Alpha can thrive with them as well.
Yeah.
So that's one initiative that I'm really interested and excited about. At the moment, we don't have dates, but the report should be out in about 2 months. I
Alright.
just reviewed
That's
the
great.
copy.
That's great.
Yeah, so that's what we are waiting for.
Wow. You talk about all these statistics. I remember I attended one conference where it's called Faith for the Future.
Yes, the millennial one.
The millennial one, and then there was this statistics. A lot of times you look at certain statistics, they don't tell you much. It's just a series of numbers and figures that at the end of the day mean nothing.
Yep.
But I looked at the Barna group and in collaboration with Alpha, and the report that you gave, it was so nice, so easy to digest the information. But not only that, it gives you an interpretation, and it gives you a tool that you can take back with this. And I have always gone back to that statistic and use it to sort of shape what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's so good. I think that's what we need right now.
Yeah.
Because we may think we know what they think. We may think we know what they want, but we
Numbers
have
don't lie.
Yeah, exactly. But we really don't know actually. And I realized through all these statistics and these reports that wow, it's not like what I thought it was. So thank you so much, and we really appreciate all the hard work that you guys put in.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And that's the greatest compliment we could ever get for something like that. It being useful to your ministry is it's a measure of success for us.
That's right.
It's a success then. It's great.
Yeah. You guys run Alpha conferences as well?
Yes,
Alpha
we
conferences.
run conferences. We call it GLOW for the English,
Guang
Guang
for the Chinese.
and
Yeah.
Velicham for Tamil, and Sinar for BM. The idea behind it is to just invite young people into a space and inspire them to carry this mantle of evangelism into the cities they live in. And then equip them with the tool. Yeah.
So I see Alpha it reaches broadly across the spectrum. It doesn't just talk about evangelism, but it also focuses on certain very niche areas that sometimes we, the church, we might overlook, or we might not have that expertise to go in there. But Alpha does all the homework for us.
Of course, it's not easy being a pastor.
Exactly.
It's I don't want to say horrible because I walk closely with my pastor.
Yeah.
To me, it can be very awful to go through the life of a pastor, life of a full-time worker in church. There's so much that's happening.
Yeah.
Post-pandemic, you guys are really like on fire all the time.
Yeah, we have to be.
Yeah, it's like it's not just spiritual fire. It's like literally the fires by the systems,
Yes, yes.
the community, the demands, the naysayers, the negative feedbacks, the
yeah.
commentings, all that's coming. Then social media. Woo! I mean,
Yeah.
it's glad that one handle of that we could come in to shed some
Yeah.
perspective and help.
Partner with us
Yeah.
and give us that tool. I think it's so needed.
Yeah.
It's so needed. Like,
I mean, kudos to you. And
thank
the
you.
team and everyone.
Thank
Yeah.
you. And also to you as well, and to your entire Alpha team. Paul Kong.
If you're watching this, Paul, we love you.
Paul and Paul and Joyce, former high school mates. Yeah, but we talk about Alpha, and as we come towards the end of this podcast, unfortunately, we don't have that much time anymore.
No worries.
But how will Alpha continue to influence and improve, the next generation in the faith? Now, we talk about, previous, podcasts, we talk about with that speaker, we talk about how, today's generation is a social media, they are influenced by social media.
Yeah.
The top 3 influencers. Now, this is not by any statistic, just my own statistic, just off the top of my head. All right, it's Netflix, YouTube, and maybe Spotify, and their worldviews are shaped by that.
Yeah.
Right? How do you see Alpha will continue to, be able to be an influence in especially in this area of faith for our next generation?
Right. I think the short answer to that would be through the existing church communities, Christian communities. And that's why we feel it's very important that we continue to dream and strive together.
Yeah.
Because to just summarize, right, I've always been, we do have real challenges. Like, to be really honest with you, some alphas don't work. They stop at week 2, week 3.
Yeah.
It's not like all alphas are amazing. It's not. I would say a lot of churches, a lot of communities struggle to run it. And oftentimes when we go into dissecting what's the problem, we understand that many times a group would consider running alpha as a program. We have to do something on evangelism this year. Okay, let's run this.
Yeah.
The danger with that is you don't have a vision and you don't have set of objectives. And hence, what you're doing is just firing your bullets everywhere.
Yeah.
And the results have been bad. But we have had churches like yours and the other churches who have, we need to do something this year. This is the vision. This is the objective. What are the tools available? And if you think Alpha works, it works. If it doesn't, they want to consider other tools, go for it. But ultimately, it is the church that's placed within that community that comes up with the burden and vision and the objectives for it. And oftentimes people will, I've heard people blame it on Alpha, that, the Alpha doesn't work, the videos don't work. We accept that because I still feel we have a lot to grow. But there's only so much you can talk about a hammer. I will go back to the same analogy. If I use a hammer to fix a car tire, it's never going to work, right? I would rather understand what a hammer is used for and what is my need, right? If I feel it's going to work and if you use it, bang, that's going to be a great story there. And I think for us to continue inspiring the next generation, we have to keep listening to them. We have to keep listening to them, especially the Gen Zs. They want to be heard. They want to express themselves. An important part of a pastor, I mean, you're an STM graduate. I believe you're going to pursue your master's and PhD after this.
Yeah.
Okay.
I am.
If you're watching this, So evangelism is often ties down with proclamation. But an important part of a proclamation or the evangelism is listening. But in our culture, we have conveniently overlooked the importance of listening. To just saying it's important to tell the gospel, share the gospel, talk about the gospel, proclaim the gospel. But all of that the first point to that is listening.
Yeah.
Only when we listen to them, we can understand what's their struggle. Only when we understand, we know how to help them.
Yeah.
And that burden is often carried by the church community. And we come in, when you have that burden, we are happy because we are burdened about the whole nation. And there's only so much we can do. And our main mode of operation is through the church communities.
Yes.
And my encouragement to anyone who's watching this is that the Gen Zs, for me, are the most hopeful generation to save planet Earth.
Yes.
and
Don't lose hope in the Gen Zs.
Yeah, I wish I could be a Gen Z. Like
We are not. We are not.
We are not.
We've passed that stage.
I still think
I still think I am. The recent Gen Z conference, I wanted to raise my hand when they asked who was in the Gen Z. Then I realized, I'm past that phase.
Please lah, you look like one lah. Look at me. I look like Gen X. Man. I mean, no offense, but yeah.
By facts, we have passed that age. By looks, we may still be able to, bluff our way into that category.
Beauty mode.
Yeah, but that's such a great encouragement, and it feels so hopeful. Last question, nothing serious. The Chinese Alpha came up with a new set of videos, very contextualized. Ooh. Will we come up with a Malaysian English version, a Singlish version, or a Manglish version that will be more contextualized for our, Malaysian English with all the las and laws, and maybe with nasi lemak, right?
I tell you, the CAFS Chinese Alpha Film Series has created a wave. I think there was a sheer amount of need for that contextualization. And when it came out, there's a wave that's happening in Malaysia and all over the nations. And I think it has created a space for Alpha Global to talk about the need for contextualization. Yeah. We've always been pro-contextualization. The problem has always been funding. Resources has always been the main problem. Exactly. But now with the CAFS creating waves and post-pandemic, how there are pockets of communities, the communities have grown into contextualization far more than pre-pandemic, and we realize there's a need for contextualization. The good news is the global team is thinking about contextualization.
A Manglish version? Let's pitch it to them.
My dream is a Malaysian version, but
with all the languages into one.
But I would say at the moment we are quite far from it. What we might be able to think and work towards is probably an Asian version or an Asia Pacific version. But pray with us. There's still conversations on it.
That'll be great.
Pray that God will meet our needs.
That'll be great. Chat-GPT already has Manglish translations.
Oh my gosh. Really?
Yeah. Oh. You just type in ChatGPT, say, explain Malaysia in Manglish, and it will come out in perfect Malaysian English.
Oh my gosh.
Try it out. Fun tip.
I'm gonna try.
Fun fact. Yeah, but anyway, we come to the end of this conversation. So happy to have you here, and we had a wonderful episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Thank you for tuning in, staying all the way to the end, and we'll see you all in the next episode. Bye-bye.